Hey, Classic Joey Mac here again. I wanted to get on today, and I'm pretty excited about this video. Part of the allure of YouTube for me is you can find a lot of different things and a lot of different topics. And I've wanted to delve into quite a few different areas. Whether it's put my poetry or writing on here, give my opinions, talk about the past versus now. But one of the things I really enjoy the most is, I guess, there's healthy debates, which would be questions that I would throw out there. But in this case, this is more of just a thought exercise, or just something to make you think, which I really enjoy. The first video I did when I started doing my videos again, I talked about what would you pick as your last meal if you were on death row? I think that's just one of those weird questions that you don't really talk about often, and maybe you don't care, but for those of you that are actually interested in watching these videos, it should make you think, what would I realistically pick? Well, today I'd like to do an exercise just like that. In fact, this exercise I want to do multiple times with different parameters, but today I'm gonna put it all out there. I really do enjoy, there's the old hypothetical question of who would you invite over to your house for a dinner party if you could choose, any four people. Some people are like, oh, any four people that are alive, any four people that are dead, any four people that are this, actors or actresses, and there's all these different parameters. I really enjoy those type of questions. I think they're really cool because I think if you take them serious, it makes you think. It makes you really think like, wow, who would I really want to talk to? And you also have to put into the conversation who would, it's easy for me to pick, four people. But then you have to have them sort of mix and mesh. And you want them to be all different, but you don't want them to be too different. It's a really cool question in my eyes, at least. And today I wanted to throw it out there. Just anybody. Anybody, dead, alive, I don't care who they are. I don't care fictional or not. I plan on doing some of these, every few weeks and putting a different parameter in. I think that would be really fascinating. Like, for example, imagine doing, invite four people over that are fictional characters. Or invite four people over that are politicians that are alive. Or four people that are only dead, or whatever, So I thought that would be interesting. But I also want I want everything to go with it too. I'd like to talk about maybe the dinner that you would prepare and the setting and everything like that. I think that would be kind of cool to throw all that in there as well. So I'm not going to put any parameters on today. I just straight talking, just run with it. So I thought to myself, who would be four people that I would want over and I would host? It would be me and the four people, and who would I want over here? Who the hell would I even want? So I started thinking, I'm like, don't overthink it, Let's start, I started writing down names of people that, either were influential on my life or, people that I find very interesting. Now, for those of you that want to throw, your family in, I think that's I think it's almost too easy. Like, oh, I'd like to have all four of my grandparents over because they're all, dead. That's not, you can go that way by all means, but that's not where I'm going today. The first person that came to mind, though, that I'm pretty sure that I would want there would be the second president of the United States, John Adams. Now, why John Adams? Why would I even start with John Adams? Well, for one, I've always had a fascination with him, even before the HBO series, because in my head, there are certain presidents that always get so much love, and it just gets fantasized actually about how great or how bad certain people are that are dead. But presidents are a weird thing. You would think that basically Washington, Jefferson, Abe Lincoln, and I guess, I don't know, the other living presidents, they're like the only people that have ever had office. Yeah, that's something. And Nixon, I guess. Because you just don't hear about anyone else. So for me, I'm always fascinated with, okay, George Washington was the first, and that's cool. I'm like, who takes the reins after George Washington? Who's the second president of the United States? I was fascinated with that question even as a kid. And I was pleasantly surprised at the amount of information I could find later on, especially after the HBO series and a couple of the books that had come out shortly before that. John Adams just seemed like a really... and again, none of us know who John Adams was. None of us know who anyone, was that was dead. All we can do is go by letters, books, and word of mouth, But John Adams, to me, just seemed like someone that would be fascinating to talk about. I mean, for one, you get a chance to talk about the American Revolution, both before and after. John Adams, I believe, lived to be 90 years old. That's a lot of time to encompass. Now, I'm sort of asking for the impossible, but that's what these exercises are. I'd want John Adams to sort of be in his prime, but be able to talk about all 90 years that he was alive. I mean, he was a great speaker. We know this. He was a lawyer. Had a fascinating life. Played a very influential role during the American Revolution, which I find is a very interesting time of American history, of course. I think John Adams also would be able to talk about a great many different topics. He was born at a time where you had to really know and understand so many things, Obviously a politician, he traveled the world. He would have so many fascinating stories. And what I liked about John Adams, I think, is he was so independent thinking. Before all the political bullshit of today, with all these political parties, like you can't even think anymore without being part of one side or another. I like that John Adams was still sort of that breed where he was independent. I try to consider myself a very independent thinker. I try to consider myself someone that makes good decisions. I don't go with one side or another. I try to make my own decisions, and if I agree with one side or the other, that's different. But I try to take every position independent of another. I don't try to, because this party likes X, but I hate everything else about the party, I'm going to still vote for them. That's not who I am. So John Adams, I think that would be a really cool start. Second, I would start, or not start, because I've started with John Adams. The second person I would choose would actually be probably a more surprising name, and that would be Amy Jo Johnson. Now, she would be known more for her fame as the Pink Power Ranger on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers back in the early 90s. But she is a lot more than that if you know anything about her. Obviously, my first introduction, like anyone else, was her being the Pink Power Ranger. This girl was probably one of the first crushes I've ever had in my life. That's not why I would choose her. I do think she's beautiful, and she was an interesting part of my own nostalgia during my childhood. But the truth is, she's also, at this point, a photographer, a painter, and an accomplished artist. She's also involved in a lot of films. As everyone knows, she does a lot of independent films. She's one of these people that sort of is much more than what she appears, If you ever get a chance, check out her story. Even her story getting into acting is fascinating. Basically just getting into a car and driving to LA and taking a chance. She also, I believe she was in an accident or something. And I apologize if I'm rolling through these. I don't have time to give a biography on every single person. But she had trained to be in the Olympics, I believe. Did a lot of gymnast activities. I think she still did. So she did a lot of cool stuff. She's one of these really well-rounded people, which I love. I like people that are passionate, and I would want to talk to her about all of her different interests, and I think she'd have a good perspective on today. She's about 10 years older, 12 years older than me. I would love to just hear her story. I'd love to have her converse with others about so many range of topics, from politics to art to music to acting. and so on. So she's sort of someone that has her hands on everything, and she's under the radar. Next, I'd go with someone else who's no longer with us, and that would be Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain, I think, is one of the most stunning deaths of our lifetime, and I'm only 29, but obviously the front man of Nirvana, somebody that had a lot of issues, dealing with fame, dealing with drugs, leading basically the grunge revolution, and he didn't even know it. I think the 90s were an incredible time. I think they were a crazy time too, and I think his thoughts on politics, music, art, where everything is today, where it was, how it changed so dramatically because of bands like Nirvana and so on. I think that would be really interesting. I think it'd be cool to pick his brain and hear some different stories. Maybe even know some of what he was really thinking at those times. I would love to hear his thoughts on some of the music, why he wrote some of the music, why he wrote lyrics, why he had such different thought processes. I just think that would be incredible, and I think he would, he'd probably be high, but I think he would add a lot to the conversation with everyone. And then my last pick would be Salma Hayek. It's funny, Amy Jo Johnson and Salma Hayek are definitely two people I've always had a crush on. Salma Hayek, I think, is one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life, even though she's getting older now. So I guess it doesn't hurt to have some eye candy there, but that's not why she's being selected as well. Well, that's not the only reason, I should say. She is beautiful and certainly would be invited to wear something low cut, but she's got an interesting backstory as well. Another passionate person, someone that had an interesting rise into fame herself. Did a lot of cool movies. Does a lot of women's rights activism, which I would think would be pretty interesting. Also an advocate for breastfeeding. I know that, which is pretty cool. She's got a really colorful life. I think she's got a lot of good thoughts. I think another person that would be really great to talk about today's world with, and also talk about acting. She's done some cool movies. Just a really fiery type of person that I would love to have a conversation with. And so those would be my four: John Adams, Kurt Cobain, Amy Jo Johnson, and Salma Hayek. Who am I to say? It's a pretty unique foursome, I think. For dinner, obviously, I'd have to have dinner at my own house. Just to throw it out there, I'd probably make something fairly easy. John Adams would be the only one that I have to worry about. He wouldn't be used to, I guess, today's modern food. But I would probably do something easy, something Italian probably. I'd probably make homemade sauce, have a nice salad, sliced tomatoes with basil and mozzarella, garlic bread, maybe homemade bread, and then for dessert we'd have something easy. I'd make tiramisu or cannolis, something I know how to make, something I've had a lot of practice making, something very simple to go with conversation. I probably wouldn't make angel hair because I think that would be too difficult for us to talk. It'd probably be penne, rotelli, something like that. Something easy, something you just put in your mouth and chew, and that'd be it. So that would be my foursome. I actually think it'd be a pretty fascinating conversation. I think they're all alike in some ways, different in others. I think what I like the most about them is they're all pretty independent. They're all pretty passionate people. So I think that alone would be, I'd be confident in it working out. I'm confident it would be a good conversation. probably good debates, probably good conversations. A lot of good stories, though, I think. And I really try, I've got, music represented. I've got politics represented. I've got acting represented. I've kind of got someone that does a little bit of all of them. So I think that would be a really good, I think it'd be a really good conversation. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think I've got, more of an older gentleman. I've got a younger person, and I guess you'd say younger in Cobain. He died when he was 27. Amy Jo Johnson and Salma Hayek function both as beautiful women, but also extremely interesting women and fascinating. So I've sort of got even that all well-rounded in terms of, my enjoyment and just everything. So I think it'd be really cool. I would, I guess, serve some sort of red wine. I don't know. It would be good. I think it would be fascinating. I think these are all four people that, for whatever reason in my life, I've always found influential. I'm not going to sit here. I will not say they are the four most influential people in my life. I just think they are influential in one way or another. If I had no parameters, these are probably the four people that I'm taking. Now, if we had different parameters, the choices would be much different, but I don't. So those are the four that I would select. I'm curious to see what other people would choose. And again, I don't want any parameters on this one. I don't want any anything in the way. It's four people. I mean, who would you select? And you can let me know, most likely on my Twitter or the YouTube comments. I'll post this obviously on Tumblr, so that's where all my videos are. But please feel free to contact me. I would be curious to see what others select. I think it's a fascinating question. I really do, and I think it does take some time. Certainly, if you're, everyone has their own reasons for picking for, their four people. I wanted people that are influential, passionate, independent thinking, and just really interesting. And two of them, like I said, Amy Jo Johnson was a crush of mine when I was a kid. Salma Hayek was a crush of mine when I was probably a teenager. But they're more than that. We're not talking about just a beautiful body. If I wanted that, I would say, I've always loved Britney Spears for whatever reason. Why don't you have her come down? I don't think she'd be as interesting as Amy Jo Johnson and Salma Hayek. So you have to sort of have that blend too. It's not all about looks, but it's also not all about somebody's life either. You have to take everything into consideration. You also have to take into consideration how they would interact with each other and how they would interact independently of one another. So that's my thought process. Not the most detailed, not the most elaborate. It's not science, everyone. It's me having a good time, thinking about a what if. I just think it'd be fascinating. So hit me up, let me know, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, see you.